When Donald Trump and his allies attempted to overturn the 2020 election, they tried a couple of different tactics that employed the same strategy of exploiting vague language in the Constitution. You might remember a remarkable story we told you several weeks ago about a former federal appeals court judge, this man, Judge Michael Luttig, who all but saved our democracy in January of 2021 with just a few well-timed tweets. The story of those democracy-saving tweets goes like this. Donald Trump's advisor, John Eastman, had been suggesting to Donald Trump that Vice President Mike Pence had the authority to block the certification of valid electoral votes by Congress and overturn the 2020 election in Trump's favor. Eastman based his theory on a misguided interpretation of the Electoral Count Act. Donald Trump was either convinced by Eastman or thought it could work and put the screws to Mike Pence to carry the mission out. Pence needed a way out of this. Pence's advisor called a friend and a trusted legal mind, this man, Judge Michael Luttig. Eventually, the advisor asked Judge Luttig to put out a public statement clarifying the legal role of the vice president in the electoral vote certification. So Judge Luttig put out a series of 7 tweets saying in no uncertain terms that the vice president's only appropriate path forward was to certify the vote. He tweeted in part, quote, "The only responsibility and power of the vice president under the Constitution is to faithfully count the Electoral College votes as they have been cast," end quote. And that was apparently all Mike Pence needed to help him do the right thing, the lawful thing. Only a day later, Vice President Pence put out a statement explaining why he was certifying the election for the rightful winner, Joseph R. Biden. In the same statement, Pence cited Judge Luttig's legal analysis. Luttig went on to assist a bipartisan effort to reform the Electoral Count Act and to prevent it from being used to manipulate future elections. Meanwhile, Trump was testing out a different tactic to stay in power. He began to ask state legislators and state election officials in Arizona and Georgia to throw out votes and overturn the election results. That strategy attempted to exploit a fringe concept called the Independent State Legislature theory, ISL for short. Now, extreme interpretations of the ISL doctrine argue that state legislatures have the absolute power to set election rules and to determine disputed outcomes. Behind the scenes, Trump's allies argued that this theory allowed for state legislatures to select electors who would cast their votes for Donald Trump, even though the certified electors were lawfully bound to cast their votes for Joe Biden or for whomever had actually won the popular vote in their state. Legal experts across the political spectrum say the theory is baseless. Judge Luttig, a conservative, said this about the theory on this show back in October.
There is literally nothing at all in the Constitution or in the history, either from the time of the founding of our country or the framing of the Constitution, that even hints at the possibility of such a theory.
Now, what began as a dispute over a heavily gerrymandered congressional map in North Carolina has brought the ISL theory back into focus and to the Supreme Court in a case called Moore v. Harper. The Supreme Court's going to hear oral arguments for that case this week on Wednesday. And if the Supreme Court embraces ISL, it could have dire consequences for the integrity of future elections in the United States. It could give elected state representatives and legislatures the authority to redraw districts without any court oversight, ending protections against gerrymandering. It could allow state legislators to ignore their own state's voting laws, subvert their own constitutions, and even handpick presidential electors. In an op-ed for The Atlantic, Judge Luttig wrote that Moore v. Harper may be the most important case for American democracy in the almost 2.5 centuries since America's founding, end quote. I'd love to be able to say there's no danger of the United States Supreme Court giving rise to the end of American democracy, but I cannot say that. I will be watching this case on Wednesday. You should too.